And good morning. How's everyone doing? It's Dr. Roddenberry coming to you from the University of Rijeka Library here in Rijeka, Croatia on a rainy afternoon. I hope everybody's doing well out there. Thanks for coming to the exam review. If you're out there in my audience, go ahead and chat me up and let me know you are out there. I see we have a couple of people. Of course, you're here, Angelina. Thank you very much for coming. Hope you're doing well, and I hope you're ready to prepare for this exam. Uh, Hopefully after this exam review, I'll give you enough specific information so that you'll be able to do well on this exam, okay? But I am sure glad to have you here with me this morning. Can you hear me well enough and can you see me well enough? How's everything out there, Angelina? Am I coming through clear enough and loud enough for you? I'm over here looking at my monitor to see what you say, just to make sure. I hope I'm coming through clearly. Fantastic. Okay, great. Well, Angelina, I guess it looks like it's only you and me in this live broadcast today, but that's okay. Hopefully, I'll give you some secrets that will help you do better on this exam than everybody else, right? So, let's go ahead and get started. What I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen with you today, and I've got an exam review written in the course modules folder, and I'm going to go over that in detail so that you can be prepared uh, for this exam. Okay. I see we have another viewer joining us. Hello, viewer. If you want, go ahead and type in a hello in the chat bar and let me know you're out there. So what I'm going to do is share my screen. Oh, excuse me. I take that back first. Let me go over here to this. Okay, and go to right here. And then I'm going to hit share screen. Okay, that should be a little bit better. Okay, so hopefully you see the exam folder. We are currently in the modules exam folder. If you look up here at the top on the screen, you see modules, and we are in the exam folder. This is where you're going to find the exam. It is right down here. Exam 1 requires the lockdown browser. You can't see it right now, but it will be available Friday morning at 9 a.m. This is where you'll find it, along with the exam review live exam review link that we're doing today. And you're going to see the exam review content that I'm going to be talking about today. And you'll see the lockdown browser download that you will need for this exam. Remember, you're going to need to use the lockdown browser for this exam. If you've never used this before, you just need to click the download link right here, and it will download the Respondus browser. Mine's already downloaded, so it doesn't go to that. And there's a little bit of an overview, so you can install it now right here with the button. And if you have any questions about how it works, there's a short review that you can look over that will give you some hints on how to use the Respondus browser. Good morning, Grace. Thanks for joining us. Hopefully you can hear me well enough. Angelina, Grace, have either of you used the lockdown browser before? Have you ever used the lockdown browser before? Ooh, I want to show you that. Okay, if you decide to use it, one of the things, let's see, no you haven't, okay, no you haven't. Here's a trick. When you download the lockdown browser, the first time you use the browser, you have to open it up. It'll download as an app onto your computer, and you'll have to open it up in order to start the exam. I had a lot of students last time have difficulty with this because they downloaded the lockdown browser, installed it, and then went straight back to Blackboard and tried to start the exam there, and it won't let you do that. So you actually have to open the lockdown browser. I think you only have to open it the first time you use it, but just keep that in mind, okay? So I see we have another person joining us. Hello, whoever you are. It's good to see you. Thanks for joining us this morning. Please let us know if you've used the lockdown browser before. Are those instructions clear, Grace and Angelina? Do you understand? what you need to do, and I've got it down here in a big red note. The first time you use the Respondus browser, you have to open it manually before the exam will work. Okay? Now, I have also found that there were some students who reported problems if they were using MacBooks or those Chromebooks. If you have one of these, I think the MacBook, it was if the operating system was out of date or something, the person had to do some fixes in order to get it to work. If you can, try to use maybe a Dell computer or some other kind of computer. I've got this exam set that you should be able to use it on an iPad if you want. So if you want to do this exam on an iPad, you can do that as well. If you have any troubles, of course, you're going to send me a text, and you know how it is. I'm pretty good about responding to remind texts. So if you have any problems this weekend, just send me a quick text and I'll see if I can help you work through the problem. Whatever you do, do not get upset or nervous or anxious. I will help you work through whatever problem you have so that you can successfully complete the exam. Is that cool? You understand, Angelina and Grace? I promise I'm going to take care of you. I'm not going to let anything bad happen to you. I promise. Okay? Let's go back and go to the exam review. All right, so the exam is going to be 50 multiple choice matching and true-false questions. You have 60 minutes to do the exam. There is a timer, and the timer will start as soon as you open the exam. You must complete the exam the first time you open it. You cannot stop and restart the exam, okay? Now, the timer will run 60 minutes. Some of you have extensions because you filed paperwork with DSS. If you do have a DSS time extension, just take the time that you are allotted to have. When you finish the test, if you go over the time limit, it will flag you, and I will have to come back in manually. And once I check that you have the DSS accommodation, I will accept the exam even if you're over the time limit. Okay? Now, let's go ahead and go through the exam review. Is it big enough for you to see? Can you see what I'm showing you on the screen? I'm actually even going to maybe make it a little bit bigger. There you go. Hopefully there you go. Okay, so chapter 1 is composed of 12 multiple choice questions. Okay, good, perfect. 12 multiple choice questions. Now, in the first week, we talked about the fathers of psychology, 3 fathers of psychology, Gustav Fechner, Wilhelm Wundt, and William James. I'm going to give you 2 of them, and I want you to identify the contributions that they made to the beginning of psychology. I then have 2 general questions on what the definition of psychology is and why psychology is different from philosophy. So you'll need to do that. Now, if you remember, I spent a lot of time talking about these subfields of psychology the first week of this class, and as I promised you, I'm going to have you to identify 5 different types of psychologists based upon their research interests. So it's going to be just like your homework. I'm going to tell you what they do, and you're going to tell me what kind of psychologist they should be. Okay? Now, we talked about the different research methods. We talked about experiments, case studies, correlations, and surveys. I'm going to give you examples of 2 different types of research methods, and I'm going to ask you to identify the research method that they're using. So are they doing an experiment? Are they doing a correlation? Are they doing a case study? You should be able to know enough about these different research methods so that you can tell me based upon the information I give you on the test. And then finally, your book talks about positive and negative correlations, and that's a pretty important statistical concept that you're going to need in this class as well as your other science classes. So I'm going to give you an example of a correlation, and you're going to have to tell me whether or not it is a positive or a negative correlation. I see we have somebody else joining the live broadcast. Thanks for coming. If you want, go ahead and type a hello into the chat bar and let me know how you're doing. Hi. That's all we have for chapter 1. Does anybody have any questions about what I'm going to be asking you for in chapter 1? You have to know the fathers of psychology, the definition of psychology, the different subfields of psychology, and a little bit about the research methods that are used in psychology. Any questions? If you have a question, just go ahead and let me know in the chat bar. I'll look at it right now. Hopefully everything was clear. No. Good question. You are not allowed to use notes or your book or anything like that on this exam. That's why I'm going through and trying to be as specific as I can, Grace. So no, you are not allowed to use notes for this exam. Okay? Good question, very good question. All right, let's go back to the exam review. All right, so for chapter 2. Chapter 2, there are 13 questions. 12 of those questions are multiple choice, and there is one matching question, okay? So Grace, since I'm not letting you use books or notes, I'm trying to be just as specific as possible. So these are the brain parts that I want you to be familiar with. I want you to know what the fusiform gyrus does. I want you to know what the cerebellum does. I want you to know what function is controlled by the occipital lobe, what is controlled by the frontal lobe. I want you to know what the spinal column does, and I want you to know what the corpus callosum does. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So go ahead and study those and see if you can remember what those brain parts are going to do. All right? Now, we also talked about the anatomy and physiology of a neuron. So I want you to be able to identify the parts of the neuron. Okay? And I want you to be able to tell me what an action potential is. Okay? Now, we also talked about neurotransmitters, those chemicals that are secreted by neurons. I'm going to give you one neurotransmitter. I'm going to pick one off of the list that's on your PowerPoints, and I'm going to ask you to tell me what the function of that neurotransmitter is. I'm not going to tell you which one it is because I want you to learn them all, but I'm going to pick one of them and question you on that. Okay? And then I want you to understand the general design of the brain. Go and read about the contralateral design of the brain. What exactly do I mean when I'm talking about that? Okay, that's chapter 2. Do you have any questions about what's going to be on chapter 2? I'll wait for a moment and see if you have any questions. You probably don't. Hopefully this is pretty clear and straightforward, so you don't have to guess too much. Okay. All right, I don't see any questions in the chat bar, so I'm going to go back to the exam review. Okay? All right, for chapter 3. Chapter 3 was all about states of consciousness. Remember, we talked about sleeping and dreaming, meditation, flow, hypnosis, and we talked about our limited ability to pay attention and the limits on our conscious awareness. All right, and so that's what we're going to cover on this exam. This chapter is going to have 13 questions. 10 of those questions, oh my goodness, 10 of those questions are, 11 of those questions are multiple choice, and 2 of them are matching. You know what? I can't believe I did that. Hold on a second. Exam review. Let me edit that sucker. Following brain parts. I'm going to put a parentheses there. That was a typo. And then I'm going to give you 11 multiple choice. How about that? There you go. That's better. Goodness me with my typos. Okay, so here we are on chapter 3. Okay, so what I'm going to want you to do is I'm going to give you a general question about what consciousness is. The first slide, the first PowerPoint slide of chapter 3 has some general notes about consciousness. I'm going to ask you about what consciousness is. So go ahead and read up and make sure you have a general idea of what consciousness is. Okay? We also talked about the limits of consciousness, and I talked about what change blindness was and what inattentional blindness was. What I'm going to do is I'm going to give you an example, and I want you to tell me if it's an example of change blindness or an example of inattentional blindness. Okay? Then we have some general questions on the altered states of consciousness. We talked about flow, hypnosis, and meditation. I'm going to give you some information, I'm going to give you a general description, and I want you to tell me whether or not I'm talking about flow, whether or not I'm talking about meditation, or whether or not I'm talking about hypnosis. Just some general questions. Okay? Now, I have two questions related to the brain areas that are associated with sleeping and waking. Okay, so I want you to know those. And then we also spent some time talking about the specific stages of sleep. Remember, I talked about stage 2 sleep, which was light sleep, stage 3 and 4, which is deep sleep or delta sleep, and then I talked about REM sleep. So what I'm going to do is give you 3 general questions about the stages of sleep. So read up on those different stages, find out what happens in light sleep, what happens in deep sleep, and what happens in REM sleep. And so I'm going to ask you 3 general questions about those. Okay? Now, we also talked about sleep disorders. Remember, I talked about sleep apnea, I talked about sleepwalking and sleep talking. We talked about narcolepsy, and we talked about, let's see, sleep apnea. And when you can't go to sleep, it's called insomnia. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you 3 general descriptions of sleep disorders, and I want you to be able to tell me which sleep disorder I am talking about. I notice we have a couple more people on the broadcast. Hi, FS Robertson, thanks for coming. And we looks like we have another couple people too. I see you retracted your message, Robertson, but you are more than welcome to ask your question. There are no stupid questions in this class, so feel free if you're comfortable enough to go ahead and type that question in. If you joined the broadcast late, you want to say hello, go ahead and type in the chat bar and tell me hello. Welcome, thanks for coming. And I'm going to go back at the end and repeat some of the stuff I said at the beginning that you may have missed, okay? So let's go back to the exam. Okay. And then chapter 4, that is the final chapter that we are going to be covering. Chapter 4 has 12 questions. 7 of those questions are multiple choice. 3 of those questions will be true, false, and 2 of those questions will be matching. Okay? So let's see, we talked about why developmental psychology is important. If you remember, we talked about it increasing the lifespan and the well-being of people. We talked a little bit about the risks of low birth weight, right? And then if you remember, I talked about the 3 domains of development. Those were the 3 circles that were on, I think, maybe the second PowerPoint slide of Tuesday's chapter. I want you to know the difference between physical development, cognitive development, and socio-emotional development. So what I'll do is I'll give you a question of somebody developing, and you'll tell me which domain of development we're talking about. Okay? Yes, Taylor asked the question. Absolutely, you will be able to rewatch this. This link will become a recording at the end of this broadcast. If you look, see down here at the bottom, this is actually a copy of the This is a link, and there's also a link on the announcements page of Blackboard. So most definitely you can rewatch this, Taylor, as many times as you want. Okay, let's see. I then talked to you about critical periods, which are times in which our brain needs to be stimulated in order for our abilities to develop normally. We talked about a language a critical period. I talked about a visual critical period, and that's just a time when your brain needs to be stimulated in order for your brain to develop normally. Okay? Now, we also talked about prenatal development. I talked about the germinal stage, the embryonic stage, and the fetal stage of development. And I suggested to you that during the germinal phase, the zygote travels down the fallopian tube and implants into the uterine wall. I then talked about the embryonic period and the fact that all of the organ systems develop from 2 to 8 weeks of prenatal development. And then we talked about the fetal period as being when the different systems begin to mature and when the baby gains the most weight. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a matching question there, and you're going to have to tell me what is happening in each of those 3 stages. At the end of Tuesday's lecture, I was kind of hurrying, but I talked about cognitive development in adulthood. And I told you how your brain changes as you are my age moving into late adulthood. I want you to know how the brain changes during late adulthood. We then also talked Tuesday about Jean Piaget and cognitive development. I really only have one question about Jean Piaget, and it's a question about what happens during the sensory motor stage. We talked about object permanence and objective self-awareness. These are 2 milestones that indicate the baby is done with the sensory motor stage. What I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a description, and you're going to have to tell me whether or not it's a description of object permanence or whether or not it's a description of objective self-awareness. We then talked about the language explosion. I want you to be able to tell me within 6 months when the language explosion occurs in young children. Okay? And I talked about all of these things. You'll notice I skipped a few items, and those are the items that we're going to talk about tomorrow in class. But I'm going to go back up to the top of chapter 4. There are 4 questions that are going to be related to tomorrow's lecture. Tomorrow I'm going to talk about Harry Harlow and his study of attachment. And I want you to know what Harry Harlow learned by studying monkeys brought up without mothers. And I want you to, in general, know what attachment is. And there's another typo. Holy cow, I misspelled attachment. My goodness, I have the worst typing skills ever. I'm going to have to fix that because I'm sitting here looking at it, and it'll make me upset until I fix it. Boom. There we go. Fix that. Okay. So there'll be 2 questions about Harry Harlow's monkeys we're going to talk about tomorrow. Now, I'm also going to talk about Erik Erikson. He has a theory of personality development where he suggests human beings go through 8 crises during their life at very predictable times when we have to learn very important life lessons. I'm going to ask you 2 questions about Erik Erikson. One is a general question about his theory, and then I'm going to ask you to match the stages to their descriptions. So I'm going to provide you 4 of the different stages. I'm going to describe them, and I'm going to mix it up, and you're going to have to match the stage name with what lesson is learned during that stage. Now, Erik Erikson's actually kind of important for you students who plan to be nursing students. For some reason, the nursing school here at Wake Tech loves Erik Erikson. So you should be prepared to know Erik Erikson by the time you finish with nursing school. Okay? Now, we're at the end of the course review, but I do want to go back and reiterate some points for the students that just logged into class. All right. Now, in order to take this exam, you will have to use the lockdown browser. And the lockdown browser just prevents you from using your computer to do other things while you are taking the exam. I'm not going to make you use the video monitor of this exam. I'm going to see what happens on the grades. As a general rule, you can tell if students aren't being honest with you. And if it turns out that students aren't being honest, then I may go up to the next level of the lockdown browser. But for this particular exam, all you're going to have to do is lock your browser down. Now, for those of you who are here, Taylor and whoever else is here, have you used the lockdown browser before? Go ahead and type in the chat bar to let me know if you've used the lockdown browser. If you haven't used the lockdown browser before, you're going to have to download it using this link right here. When you click on the link, it's going to take you to this page. You'll install the browser right here, and I highly suggest you watch the quick overview about how the browser works. It doesn't take very long, and it'll help you get started with the lockdown browser. One thing I did learn this last exam though, this is my second time using the lockdown browser. If this is the first time you are using the Respondus lockdown browser, once you download it, before you begin the exam, you have to go back to the app on your computer and open it up. A lot of students last time just downloaded it and then went back to Blackboard and tried to start their exam. You actually have to start the Respondus browser in order for the test to work the first time, okay? Also, I did have some students that reported problems using MacBooks or those Chromebooks. So if you can avoid those, you might have better luck using the exam. I do have the exam set so that you can take it using an iPad. And from what I understand, it works pretty well on the iPad. So if you want to take the exam using your iPad, that will be completely fine too. Just remember, if you have any questions, you can send me a text and I will be really good about answering you back to help you sort out your problems. Don't worry, I'm not going to let you fail this exam because you're having technological problems. So if you have trouble getting the lockdown browser to work, go ahead, send me a text. And if we need to get on the phone and talk about it and work things out, I don't have a problem doing that at all. Okay, Taylor, Grace, Angelina, anybody else who's in this broadcast, do you have any more questions for me? I didn't want to spend the whole class going over each of these details. I've already lectured on this one time, but I don't know if any of you have any questions. I see another typo. And hold on, let me see what we got going on here. I'll go back to 5. Let's see, global space, let's see, fusible, occipital, serotonin, frontal lobe, myelin, action potential, 3, 1, 2, 3, 6, 7, 12, 12, 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I think I'm missing a question on chapter 2. I don't remember what it is. You know what? In fact, I probably know what it is. Edit. And it's going to be identify. I'm almost nope. I think it's going to be this one. So there's 5 parts about the anatomy and function of the neuron. Okay, good deal. Look, you folks have a great day, or have a good day. Thanks for coming. If you need to watch this review again, please feel free to do it. I'd put it on the 1.25 speed so you can get through it quicker. But good luck on the exam. It will be available in your exam folder on Friday morning at 9 a.m. And you must complete this exam by Sunday night at midnight. So you're going to go to your modules folder and you'll click right here and voila, it will be waiting for you. It's right here. You can't see it right now. It says item is hidden from students, but it will be available after September 16th at 9 a.m. Actually, I'm sorry, I wasn't showing you the screen. Let me go back and show you that. So you're in the modules folder. You'll click on the exam folder right here, and then you'll scroll down. And on Friday morning, if you'll see right here, this is exam 1. It says hidden from students, and it won't be available until September 16th. That's Friday at 9 a.m. Okay, well, cool. You folks have a great week. Don't forget, you still have to do your homework on Friday, and we still have a lecture tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Have a great day, and good luck with the exam this week. Take care.